There are clear distinctions between the rich, the middle class, and the poor. It's imperative that you identify right now where you fall and why, so that you can elevate and change levels. Let's discuss that in this episode of Broke to Woke. Brittany Turner, you mentioned a list and you threw out some labels, some kind of scary words, really. Poor, middle class, rich.
Mm-hmm.
Are there a checklist? Is there a checklist? Can people really identify where I'm at, why they're there, and what they're doing to be there?
Well, in the Abundance Summit, you and I sat down and created a list based on understanding humanity and our experiences as well as our shifts. And it's not the end of the world when you hear this list if you identify as having majority poor habits and things that poor people do, or middle class. But if you don't know where you are, it's really hard to create a plan to get to where you want to be.
Yep.
So we also have taken the time to identify rich in the past as having enough money or assets to pay for all expenses with a surplus every month of the year. And wealthy is living constantly in a state of sheer abundance, joy, and bliss with all aspects of life. And again, broke is not having the knowledge or financial intelligence to be able to make proper decisions at the proper time.
Let's go.
Yeah. And poor is lacking sufficient money to be able to live at a standard considered comfortable or normal in a society, and the inability to get ahead. So we've defined those things in the past. So it's not all money.
Yep.
But this very much will be reflected in your bank account. These habits, what you talk about, will be reflected in your bank account.
Scary times, but
it's
this is so
unbelievable.
true.
Now, you may meet an outlier, a quote unquote rich person that still gossips.
Yeah.
But I promise you they're not a self-made millionaire. I promise you they probably inherited it or married into it or somehow related to it, or they're not really rich. They're upper middle class.
Yeah.
Because there is not a self-made person that's had to do the inner work to be able to go up levels and made it in a pure way that has those poor people habits. They don't.
Well, hold on. You're mentioning poor people habits. What are these habits?
Well, it's really what they talk about. I'm going to let you talk about poor, and I'm going to cover the rest.
Well, interesting. I know poor very well.
Yeah.
I know that very well.
You were the poorer. No, I'm just kidding.
I was poor. You were poor.
You were poorer. You know what?
Oh,
I think I was probably poorer, but you probably had poorer habits.
I think so. I know so. I know so. Because I can easily remember still a time where I would do a lot of the things that we're about to talk about. And we mentioned early on in some episodes, different levels of problems, having different levels of problems. This is how you'll know you're poor. If you discuss often your problems. And this is going to occur in a negative way. Example, my car broke down. I had a flat tire. Now, if I had a flat tire on the way to your house, Brittany, for a dinner or party, how often would I bring it up?
Once.
One, I would let you know, hey, I'm sorry I'm late. I had a flat tire. Next.
We would move on.
That's it. Now, a poor person is going to dwell on that negativity and that problem, and it will be the topic of conversation for hours, minutes, sometimes
really
days, sometimes weeks.
Ew.
All right. This one problem was so challenging. They're going to talk about issues with their boss. They're going to not even respect the fact that they have a job. Their boss is angry. They're mad. They're mean. They make me work. They did this to me. They said this about me. Having issues with your boss, very clear distinction of poor discussion. Talking about other people, aka gossiping.
Or talking crap, right?
Yeah, talking about other people in a negative fashion.
God, I've got to say that has been the lingering hardest one for me to overcome as an external processor and somebody who's gifted at finding what's wrong with things. It's a gift. Yeah. And that's, there's ways to work with your gifts, but that's the hardest one for me is not just being able to find the thing that's wrong and talk about it.
Right.
But how much energy does it take to see the obvious wrong and just talk about it versus see what's wrong, understand what's really going on, and then figure out how to elevate it?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of consciousness do you have to have? Go ahead.
No, you're right. You're spot on, because when we're doing this, it's not that you don't bring it up at all. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying you can't bring up a thing that is incorrect or negative or that is a challenge. It's the dwelling and how often you speak it into existence. AKA, a poor person will focus on their bad health constantly, right? They will talk about it for hours, for days, for weeks, every party they go to. They're going to bring up how bad their knee hurts or how bad their arm hurts or their back. They're going to bring up their bad health often. And they're also, as they relate their health, they're going to remember something specific. They're going to talk about the good old days when they weren't in pain.
Oh, man.
And they're going to bring up memories of the past frequently. Do you remember when? They're going to always go back in time and talk about when things were fantastic, when they didn't have back pain, when their knees didn't hurt, when their elbows weren't in pain. They're going to go all the way back to high school when they were playing quarterback and they won the state championship. And they're going to talk about that all the time.
I think just time. It doesn't even have to be health related, but just referencing the good old days.
Sure.
That's like it's almost cursing your future, saying that things get worse and they always unwind. Anyway, keep going. This is a great list. Again, please be taking notes, take score on, you might be a redneck if you might currently be poorer than you should be if these are your habits.
Yeah. And these are mindset tweaks, right? These are things that you're doing. I mean, a clear distinction is you feel bad about purchasing a book. You don't buy books. You don't buy things to read because you and your brain go, I don't need it. It's not going to help me. It won't assist me. It won't amplify my life at all. I don't have enough money to buy this book. I remember being in that state clearly where I'm like, I don't have enough money to buy a book. Why would I buy a book? Yeah. What would I read for? That doesn't make any sense. I'm going to remember that. And the ads that you're going to get on your social media are going to be entirely different.
Oh, man.
You're going to get pizza ads. You're going to get beer ads. You're going to get football commercials, right? You're going to be watching things that are entirely different than someone in the middle class might be viewing, right? Your distinctions are going to change slowly over time. What do those changes look like, Britt?
They've algorithmically put me in the category of being poor. You'll know. You'll know if those are your checklists.
Yeah.
I think the other things poor people talk about are TV shows. Just spending time on that. Or blaming politicians is another one. Issues with your significant other becoming more and more public. Talking about struggling all the time, struggling, getting lost in being a victim.
Yes.
Those are poor topics of conversation. We're going to move on to middle class.
Okay.
Middle class people talk about their jobs, things they're doing. They talk about 401ks. They talk about events. They love discussing the game.
Yep.
Cars.
Yep.
New things they want to buy or have recently bought.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Mortgages.
Yeah.
Bills.
Yeah.
Achieving, things that they're hoping to be known as good enough. What I'm achieving right now.
Sure.
They're really always striving to kind of like be good enough. And I saw a really good meme that I love. And it's a picture of rich and poor. And the poor guy is wearing a $400 hat and a $600 watch and the latest shoes and this whatever cool chain and jacket and glasses and all the things. And then the truly rich guy's got like $100 shoes on and $20 hat. And the difference is, do you own your stuff or does your stuff own you?
Yep.
And that is why we have spent so much time in this podcast talking about things like faith, talking about so much of the mindset and your understanding and the filters in which you go through life, because is your stuff what makes you valuable in your opinion?
Mm-hmm.
If so, like, how shallow is that? How many times do we look at pictures of us 5 years ago and we thought we were so cool in that hat or that whatever? So anything that can trend should never be your value indicator.
I'm going to agree with you on that big time, because let me just compliment you for a second. I've heard you like compliments.
Love language.
There's never been a time in our relationship at all where you're like, hey, Jeremy, guess what I just bought and how much it cost? Look at this watch. First of all, you don't wear watches.
No.
Fun fact. But secondly, you're never like, look at this necklace. This necklace cost $47,000 and I bought it yesterday.
Oh my gosh, that makes me cringe.
But you've never. I mean, we've been and done some pretty incredible things.
Yeah.
And not once will you bring up something that you've purchased or bought recently and how much it cost. This is a very middle class topic.
I've done it once.
To me?
But I've shown you a horse that we rescued.
Well,
That's about
okay.
it.
Valid point.
Here's the newest
Valid
horse
point.
that we rescued.
Yes. True. But
yes.
It's a really, really specific thing to think about. Now, again, is this a bad thing at all? Not directly. What we're talking about here, my friends, is understanding where you fit in and just ask yourself, what are the topics of conversation when I hang out with people?
Right.
When I go over to a friend's house and we're sitting around and we're having a drink, we're eating some chips, we're chatting. What are you chatting about? Are you chatting about the job, your 401k, right? What you're invested in? Are you talking about the events? Yeah, like the football games you're going to go to next weekend, right? Or the football game you went to last weekend, or the car that you're driving. Those conversations, are they popping up? And if so, it's okay to label yourself as this is where I'm at. Because if you're in middle class, where do you move up to?
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to go from poor to middle class. And then once you're in middle class, you go from middle class to rich. And the rich checklist, right? Retired in a Caribbean hotel.
You're so funny with your rich description. Our real description of rich. And what we believe they talk about would be, the checklist is who they helped and how they helped. Foundation/charity work.
Yeah.
It's what they're creating. This is the kinds of things we want to talk about. What entrepreneur is changing the world? I mean, how many times have we talked about Elon at lunch, dinner?
Sure.
New innovations, new ideas, new technologies, and breakthroughs in health. Conferences, growth events, summits we're attending, how we are growing as people, new books we're reading. I mean, I've got your list. You've got mine already for within 24 hours of being here.
Yep.
New beliefs and ideas. Like, how many revelations have you shared with me in the last 24 hours? Openly discussing investing, religion, policies, relationships, politics.
Oh my gosh, bring it on.
And then we talk about implementing. The more wealthy you are, the more at peace you are with discussing important things around you.
Ooh.
At peace you are.
A little bit of a mic drop there. Yeah.
But we've got a little bonus tip for
do?
you guys. A little bonus list. We've come up with broken and woken habits.
Oh, snap.
So we really just went through what poor people talk about, middle class people talk about, rich people talk about. Identify, self-audit, get it together.
I like that term, self-audit.
And gosh, I'm loving pro tips in this thing.
Yeah.
Pro tip is there's a scripture that I have tattooed inside my lip, and it's, do not be afraid of them, little ones, for you have already overcome them. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. The light is more powerful than the darkness. It really is. So instead of judging your friends, you're not going to be able to drag everybody up with you. But instead of judging your friends or family, just be a conversation changer. How many times have I gone in a room and asked a really weird question that you've been around?
On a daily basis. This happens on a daily basis.
Things can start getting really lame to me. Yeah. And like if people are talking, not that we would ever talk about games or whatever, but if people are just talking about other people especially, just change the subject and ask people questions. People love to talk about themselves. Ask them a deep question.
Yeah.
What do you love most about your life right now?
Yep.
What are you learning? What are your top takeaways from that? Who do you really want to meet and why? Why are we on Earth?
What's your biggest gift?
Do you believe in aliens?
Yes. Some deep questions.
What do you really think happens when we die? There's deep questions, start deep conversations, and having a meaningful conversation makes the memory more memorable. And you also get to connect with people on a different level. So everybody knows they're not going to get away with shallow conversation around me. It's like a joke in my little friend group in Nashville. We go boating and they're like, oh, Brittany's here. Now we got to talk about stuff that matters.
Yep.
But that's a reputation that I've gained from the habit of talking about things that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So broken versus woken habits.
There's a clear distinction.
Clear.
And when you're talking about broken, a habit that will arise to the surface extremely quickly, escapism. I don't want to feel this. I don't like this emotion. I don't want to experience this emotion. I definitely don't want to talk about this emotion.
Ooh.
So let me escape from it. Let me hide behind porn. Let me hide behind sugar. Let me waste time. Let me figure out a way to manipulate other people so that I don't have to explore and talk about my feelings, right? So that I can escape from that pain. That's a broken habit.
Getting drunk.
Yeah.
Getting
often.
drugs.
Yep.
Cheating.
Yep.
Maneuvering, being in a relationship and then sneak being with others. Fighting and using things that were shared in confidence or in trust or in vulnerability against the person you say you love.
Yeah.
And when we say broken habits, this is like overall broken inside. You might still have money in your bank account. You could still be some of the richest people in the world. But are you a fulfilled, happy, proud of yourself and the person you've become, successful being? Not with this list of habits.
No. I mean, you're not going to be my friend or Brittany's friend if you have these habits.
Other habits would be being stubborn about learning new things.
Yeah, stubborn
or even
mindset.
having those conversations, being really argumentative.
Yeah.
All forms of listening to, it's really just watching the news and letting it drive your decisions or letting fear drive your decisions. That's a broken habit.
Yes. As much as people might not want to admit it, it is.
Deflecting responsibility.
Huge one.
That's somebody else's job.
Huge one.
It's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's not my fault. It's you. It's you. I'm, again, victimhood.
Yeah.
So what are some woken habits you think that people should know?
Stillness is power.
Ooh, the ability to be still?
Right. Because we've mentioned this before, but in that silence, you will hear your true calling, your true purpose. You will hear that voice, and we have to silence that voice because we're afraid of hearing those words and not walking in your purpose. And so that stillness, that silence, it is power. That is meditation, right? Prayer, creating that human being experience.
Journaling.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Journaling is definitely a woken habit.
For sure. Right. If we sit in a room and we're all talking, I can look around and the people who are feverishly taking notes, I know that person's going to be going somewhere. They're going to be making moves. The richer people are going to be writing these things down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one that's come to me recently is when you see something you don't like, instead of getting lost in it or escaping that moment. So, for example, I don't like that there are thousands of abandoned orphans in Ukraine, and I feel the weight of the sadness in those people. Like I don't know how I've been so tapped into this one. I've been so sad feeling instead of just escaping and drinking something or even starting to do something to like medicate. Can you create action out of it? Can you take the pain you're witnessing and turn it into a solution versus it getting lost inside you?
Yeah, which would be an example of, serving, right? Serving your time, energy, skills, resources to figuring out that solution. In that servitude, those solutions will be given to you. So going out, putting in that time, donating, these are woken habits. These are habits that you can shift regardless of if being in rich, poor, middle class. The habits that you create determine your life. We all know that.
Well, these habits are going to determine the person you are at the end. At the end of your bank account, what's the person that you are? So it's eating good
Love that.
food, which equals investing in your health and caring about yourself so you can care about others. It's reading good books, putting in what you want to get out of life.
Yeah. Yeah. These habits, my friends, write them down, come up with your list, share your list with us.
Yes.
Reach out to us. We are obviously not going to think about every single aspect of these habits, but share with us, what habits do you feel show someone who is broken inside or someone who is awakened inside? Give us your list of rich, poor, middle class, what people talk about, what they discuss. And if you can share that with us on Instagram or broketowoke.com, under this, if you're watching it on YouTube, put it in the comment section below. Just share with us some information so we can see what's in your heart, what's on your mind, and you can continue on this journey with us to go from broke to woke.